the feature presentation, DJ Sus One, and we got Stephanie Allain, who has been part of huge projects for the culture, but at the same time, she's part of a huge horror movie that's out right now that I actually did a screening on and an influencer screening on, The Exorcist Believer. How you doing, Steph?
Thank you. Yes, so happy to be here. I am
Yeah, I'm
so
so
happy
happy
to
to
talk to you.
I'm so happy to talk to you because doing my research on you, I knew who you were, but I didn't realize how connected you were to some of the movies that were so big in our culture. Like you worked directly with John Singleton on Boys in the Hood,
Boys in
on
the Hood, Poetic
Poetic
Justice,
Justice.
Clear Learning, Hustle and Flow, and Black Snake Moan. John and I made 5 movies together and tried to make a lot more. Boy, I miss him. He was my teacher, to be honest, because I was a young studio executive when I met him, and I read Boys in the Hood, and I thought, oh shit, I live in Inglewood. I know these kids. We got to put this on the screen. And that connection to the story, to the material, to the culture gave me the passion to convince other people to put up the money. And John said to me, this is your job. You protect me. You protect the vision. And that's what I've been doing for the last 30 years.
Well, please talk to me about this experience of Boys in the Hood, because, you know, today technology is so dominant that young filmmakers come out and, you know, they make movies on their iPhones.
Sure.
You know, cameras are way more accessible than they were back there in the early 90s. You know, if you want to be a filmmaker right now, it's way different. You could put your movies out on YouTube today.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How did you and John start making movies and get the dollars to make the movie and show them that you were capable of making these movies in a time where independent was so much more difficult?
To be honest, the script was so good. Like if you read that script today, you would cry. You would feel it. He created something that was undeniable. And he had this bravado, this confidence, this I'm gonna do this vibe that I just ran with. You know, we were like, we're making this movie, he's directing it, and everybody get out of the way. Like that was the sort of vibe. And people, it was at a time in the studio world where there weren't a lot of movies being made. Columbia had been sold to Sony. They were looking for projects. So it kind of fell in the sweet spot. But they gave us the money. They left us alone, and we went off and made a movie and brought it back to them. And the next thing you know, we're on the carpet at Cannes with a standing ovation. Amazing. You know, Amazing. And John just went into the stratosphere. So it was.
You're so qualified now. But can you be honest? I just want to know, when you guys made that movie.
Oh, trust me, take it till you make it. That's what's up. You know,
because the movie came out epic. It came out amazing. But I saw some interviews with you where you said that you guys were kind of like beginners when you first started that movie.
So how did it? You know what? I hired Steve Nicolaitis, who was a really great seasoned producer, and he kind of mentored us through. But with John was making it up as he went along. I was making it up, and we just held close to the script because that was our guide. I'm a literature major, you know, I'm a story person. I read books, I read everything. So really understanding the structure of stories and how they affect emotionally the audience is where I'm coming from. So yeah, it's like when you have a dream, you just got to step off on faith. You know what I mean? Don't wait for the right moment, because it's not going to come.
Well, and I want to say this too. Not only did you make a few movies that's so big in our culture, but I want to say regarding Boys in the Hood, because I saw this in another interview of yours, that the studio kind of wanted to make it make it a gangster film instead of making like an increase the peace type of message. And I saw you say that. So I want to just salute you and salute John for even saying that, because the studios only think about the money. They're not thinking about the message.
No, butts and seats. Absolutely. They said to us, we're selling it like this. Once they get in, they'll see what it is. And John and I fought, but eventually, you know, studio has their way. And, you know, to ensure that the message was clear, we put Increase the Peace on the movie and on the poster. You know what I mean? So we wanted the world to know that the filmmaker's intention was solidly about increasing the peace.
And how was it? Did you see that these guys were going to be the stars that they can't come, like Cuba Gooding Jr., Lawrence Fishburne,
everybody in that movie,
Morris Chestnut? I can't remember all the people that was
Bassett, Lawrence Fishburne when he was Larry. It was back when he was Larry. You know, John had a really great eye. He had a really great eye. He knew he wanted Fishburne. He knew he wanted Ice Cube, and that was it. But yeah, that gave me the basis. But to be honest, this movie, Exorcist, is the biggest movie I've been involved with. It's number
Really? You
one
think so?
worldwide. Number
Which,
one
by the way,
worldwide.
it's an amazing. We're gonna get to the Exorcist. The Exorcist is amazing, guys. The Exorcist believer, especially if you're a fan of the original 1973 Exorcist, absolutely amazing. I want to get into how you even got to that because that's your first horror movie, right?
Yeah.
I'm a
Not
horror
my
fan.
last. Not my last. I love the genre because you're coming at it from a different angle, but it's the same story. We have Leslie Odom Jr. as a Black single father of a daughter who stars in
Yes.
this movie, whose representation as a caring Black father is going to go around the world. It's around the world. You know what I mean? And that is the power of genre, right? Because people go in thinking, oh, I'm going to be scared, and you can get all these. The other thing about the movie I love is it's about community. It's not just about one white guy against the devil. It's a whole community. It's women. It's a woman of color, Oakley, who's a root worker. There's so much about the movie that I love that I think kind of lives under the surface of a terrifying, horrific story about two girls who are possessed. And
How did
what's
you?
the community going to do?
How did you get involved with the Exorcist believer, and who made the decision in the team? Were you involved with the decision making that we're going to make this a direct sequel of the original, even though there were sequels after that?
Here's the thing. Jason Blum is a genius when it comes to horror, and I've known him forever. So he called me up and he said, "Hey, I know you don't do horror, but I'm making The Exorcist, which is not a sequel. It's a new beginning to the original, as if all the other movies hadn't happened. Leslie Odom Jr. is starring." And I was just like, yes, please. You know, it was not hard. It was not hard. And I met with Leslie and I just loved him, and I still do. And I think he's so talented. You know, he's on Broadway right now with Pearly Victorious, which is amazing. So for me, it was just a win-win. I mean, how do you say no to that?
No, I would have never said no to that. You made the complete correct decision. The Exorcist, man, it was vicious. Some of one of the main kills, I'm not going to say in this interview because I don't want to be a spoiler, was crazy. You know, it was a twist with the, you know which one I'm talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I don't want to get the spoiler away. Were you into horror before you got into this? I know you weren't involved with horror, but were you ever watching horror like in the 80s?
You know what? Like I said, The Exorcist was one of my favorite movies growing up. The Exorcist, I was 12. I read the book before. I thought it was brilliant. You know, same thing with The Godfather. I read the book, saw the movie. This was formative for me because it showed the power of the screen as opposed to just the page, you know. So I love The Exorcist. I've watched it a bunch of times. Some of the new horror stuff is a little too gory for me, to be honest. Do you know?
Gory to me doesn't mean always equal horror to me. Horror to me is when I'm scared to go to sleep.
That's right.
You know?
Dread. Like that feeling of, am I safe? Like that's what we're delivering, and a lot of jump scares too. But that's why I'm so proud of this movie, because it's smart, it's classy, it's classic. You know, David Gordon Green is a fantastic director, and it was a pleasure to work with him as well.
How was it working with the two young ladies?
They were so great
because their performance was amazing.
Can you believe it? And we were all standing around going, these two young women are killing it, literally. Like, and in between takes, though, they'd be singing Taylor Swift and having a good time. You know, they were able to sort of.
So after these horrific, these crazy
should I not
performances, now you should say that, because I want to hear these behind the scenes stories, because, you know, people watch these movies and get sold into the story. Yeah. And like, oh my God, this is horrifying. But they're happy behind the scenes.
They are, because the set was ebullient. It was filled with love. It was filled with protection. We hired Carla Duran, who's a spiritual coordinator who blessed the set every day and every night, who had sage and wore white and asked people if they were okay. Like, we wanted to make sure that everybody was okay, because there's a lot of stuff to a horror movie where you're using real incantations from various different cultures, right? And so we wanted to make sure that our entire cast and our entire crew was safe and felt protected, so they could do their best work. And it started with the girls. Like they were our main concern. So they were just brilliant. You know, they were in makeup for hours in order to change their appearance, and then would come to set just ready to play. So it really demystified horror for me, you know, as a filmmaker. And now I'm into it.
Anybody watching this, The Exorcist Believer is out right now. It's absolutely amazing. Was there any pressure with you and the team and all the producers and the actors and the writers because they're following such an iconic horror movie?
Are you kidding? Of course.
Okay,
I mean,
okay.
this is the biggest, best horror movie of all time. To step into that shadow it's an incredible leap of faith, right? But what you do is you give it your best. You hire the best. You put together the best team, and your intentions are to honor that first movie, and in fact to salute William Peter Blatty, to salute Billy Friedkin, who we're so sorry didn't get to see the film because we hadn't finished when he died, and to create a whole new chapter, right, of The Exorcist for a new generation. I mean, I'm old, so 50 years ago, I was there in the theater. You know,
you're not old. Stop. She's not old. We're seasoned.
I'm seasoned.
We're seasoned.
But there's a whole new group of kids that, you know, we can turn this movie on to. And again, the message of community, the message of, you know, representation. This is what we come forward with this movie in a world that is so divided right now. You know what I mean? So you can put your little messages into any kind of genre, but horror is so beloved and so watched. So I think, you know, to make a really great, smart, scary movie that young kids like, but old folks love, that's a win-win.
Exactly. Like I said, you've been involved with iconic projects like Poetic Justice, Higher Learning, Boys in the Hood, Hustle and Flow, Dear White People, Dear White People. I don't know what else I'm missing. And now you have
some new movies coming.
Yeah, that's what I was getting to. You have The Exorcist Believer. I want to talk about what you got coming up, but is it possible, being a horror fan, that you might continue working on some other horror films, or this was your one horror project and you're like, all right, I got it out there, now let me get to other stuff?
No, I love trying new things. I love it. And this just opened up a whole new world for me. I'm already working on another Blumhouse project right now.
Wow.
Which is going to start shooting next year. So the strike is over. And yeah, it's just more people to get to. Do you know what I mean? Like more people to see us on the big screen. To me, that is so valuable. So why wouldn't I do more horror? Like smart horror, you know what I mean? Like smart, but
not just doing it just to be doing it.
No, I can't do that. It's too hard.
Exactly. You know, I want to ask you this question. I know the movie studios don't like when I ask questions like this, but I just want to ask, coming from the world that we come from, I'm a very, very, very big fan of the theater. Like seeing The Exorcist Believer on the big screen meant a lot to me, right? But so many movies go right to streaming now. I just want to know, coming from, you know, where Boys in the Hood was on the big screen, Poetic Justice was on the big screen, Exorcist Believer was on the big screen, but you see the way the world's going. How do you feel about today's world of it's always in the theater, but on your television, and it just doesn't feel the same to me? Well, at least for the great movies.
Listen, there is nothing like sitting in a theater with a bunch of people you don't know in the dark and feeling the same thing at the same time. You know what I mean? Like when you're jumping or you're laughing or you're crying, there's a community there that makes you feel a part of something. And that's something you don't get at home. You know what I mean? So I think the theater will continue to exist. We're going through changes, but it's gonna be there for us on the big screen. There's also a place for movies at home, and there's a place for a hybrid. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be all or nothing. It's a community vibe of how can we get these stories out. Some stories need to be told, but because of the mechanics and the finances, the big screen is out of the question. So what do? You know what I mean? You want to put it up there for a week or two. You want people to see it. You want people to see it in that format, but then you want more people to see it, and more people are going to see it at home. So for me, streaming, theater, it's all just different tools to send out the stories that we feel need to be told.
Which is great. We have these different tools today. But guys, all movie studios, do not take away the theater.
Do not. No.
Do not take away the theater. Is The Exorcist stopping here? Like, do you think you could see?
The Exorcist is starting. This is a new beginning. Come on, DJ.
That's what I'm saying.
We got 2 more movies to make. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So they're coming. They are coming.
Nice. I love to hear it. Yo, real quick, but me being on hip hop radio and being in the hip hop culture, I have to ask, how was it working with iconic Tupac Shakur?
Amazing.
And of course, the legendary Queen Janet Jackson on Poetic Justice. Is there any great stories you could tell us?
Oh man, there's so many stories I can tell. I can tell you one funny story, which is if you know the poster for Poetic Justice, it's Janet in profile.
Yeah, I remember the poster.
It's nowhere around, right? Where's Tupac?
Oh yeah, you're right.
I'll tell you why. It's because when we had that photo shoot, we had all this food, and there was something he wanted that wasn't there. So he left to get it. And we're like, where's Tupac?
During the photo shoot?
He was gone. So
oh my
we ended
God.
up just with Janet. But that is Tupac Shakur. He was a unique, one-of-a-kind person.
Yeah, he was definitely a unique, one-of-a-kind person. Well, look, I look forward to seeing more projects from you. What else you got coming up? Like in the
I
near
have
future?
my first documentary on the great Billy Preston, who is known as the fifth Beatle, but he has played with everybody, nothing from nothing and going in circles. Okay. Anyway, it's an amazing story that's coming out. And then my latest narrative film is called Exhibiting Forgiveness, written and directed by the amazing American painter, Titus Kaphar. It's a Black story. It is phenomenal. And I can't wait for the world to see it.
That's amazing. What can you tell the youth who wants to be in your shoes and get into the music game? I mean, the movie game.
Sure.
Like in today's generation, what do you think is the proper steps? Everybody has a different journey, different tactics, but what advice would you give the youth?
I would say study yourself and figure out what it is that really inspires you. What are you passionate about? And become an expert at that. Whether it's action movies or comedies or love stories, whatever it is, do the homework. Go back, study everything that's been done. Read all the writers that are writing in that genre. Watch all those movies. Pretty soon, you're going to be valuable in and of yourself because you have knowledge, you have something to say. And then beyond that, pick up your phone. Look at these phones. These phones are amazing. Steven Spielberg makes movies on his phone. Not Steven Spielberg, Steven Soderbergh.
I was about to say he does.
Still different. I bet Steven Spielberg does too. But Soderbergh makes beautiful movies on his phone. You have the tools in your pocket. Go out, shoot a short today, cut it together on your little iMovie and keep going. Because the only thing that is true is practice does make perfect. So
exactly.
More practice, do it. Don't talk about it. Don't tell people about your plans. Go out and do it.
Just do it. All right, guys. So The Exorcist Believer is in theaters right now. Like I said, I did an influencer screening watching the movie, and it was absolutely amazing. People jumped. People were screaming at the screen. There was a bunch of different reactions. I want to applaud you, Stephanie Allain, for helping bring this iconic, legendary series, back to life. And I'm looking forward to seeing more projects coming up in the near future. And I greatly appreciate what you brought to the game and to the culture.
Thank you, DJ Sussman. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me.
Love, of course. The feature presentation. Love.